So I just wanted to give a little introduction to what I want to do today and in this weekend. I've called it, it's an exploration of dance's spiritual practice. And it's derived from, it's sort of somewhere in the space between, or encompassed by DUP, Dances of Universal Peace, and also Sufi practice. And in the last 14 years, I've been dancing an awful lot of Zikr, mostly on my own. And it's really from the experiences that have built up from that, especially the last 2 years, that I felt that there was something worth sharing with other people. So that's what I'm doing. One of the things that has emerged as being quite important for me in my dancing, when I've danced with other people, is coming together, actually making as much effort as we can to move together, to do our things together, to tune into what's happening, perhaps a little bit more consciously than we normally do. So that's one of the sort of concentrations that we'll have today. Being aware of the details of our movement. So not just, if we're doing a side step, being aware of, is there a little bit of turn in it, or is it just a straight side step, or is there a bit of a dip in it? I'm trying to do the same thing together. Something happens when we do the same thing together, which is quite special. Which way are our feet pointing? Are they pointing into the middle, or are they pointing just slightly this way? These things can make a difference, and if we tune into them, we can get. I've found I can get quite a lot from it, so maybe we can. Being really aware, kinesthetic awareness, being aware of our bodies, of everything about our bodies. Especially things I just talked about, like are we turning a bit this way, or are we just moving this way? Holding an awareness of our bodies as we dance does a lot for the circle. Also being aware of the circle, the shape of the circle, how we're connecting with the people on either side of us. Also, we're going to do quite a lot of work with the elements, breath, and with the Sufi chakras. And what lies behind that is extending the idea of being present as far as we're able to do it. So we can be present, first of all, having our eyes open when we dance. That's not a bad starting point. Being present to each other as well as to our own space. Being present to the outside as well as to the inside. But then also extending that to being present to the different levels of being, which are kind of revealed by the elements breath and by working with the chakras and the Sufi subtle centers. So that when we're dancing with as much of our being as we connect with as possible. The things that we're going to do are going to be the things that have worked for me over the last few years. So some of them are going to work for you, I hope, and some of them won't. And I don't feel at all that what I'm trying to do is to show people that there's a right way of doing anything. But what I hope that will come from it is that I hope you get some new thoughts about, okay, this works for me, I quite like this, or this one doesn't work for me. And that's the objective. So the objective isn't to show a right way of doing things. The objective is to sensitize ourselves, as I have done myself. When you dance on your own, you're not dancing for anyone else. And so you have a real opportunity to find out what it is that is important for your own connection and dancing. And I hope a little bit of that, something of that happens for you. And if something isn't working, as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly okay that it's not working. I hope it's okay with you too. You know, if something isn't working for you, you can stay with it and see what happens. And that's very interesting, because I find quite often when I'm dancing on my own or with one other person that something isn't working for me. And sometimes when I stay with it, it just transforms and suddenly it's working incredibly well. And other times, nothing happens at all. It doesn't work. Well, both those are quite interesting experiences. So you can stay with it or you can drop out. I don't mind. If something isn't working for you, you want to sit out, I'm totally all right with you doing that. What I ask you to do is not to project negative energy into the circle, because that has an effect on everybody. I'd like to hold silence today from now through to when we finish our afternoon session, which is at around 5 o'clock. We did this I did the same thing last weekend in Kapiti, and it's not altogether easy to hold a silence when you've got to have a meal break together and stuff like that, but I think it really did help us to explore what this practice we're doing. We're doing the practice of Zikr, the remembrance of our connection with the One. And it really helps to have some space around that, to stay with that practice all the way through a day. It's not a long time. I had some sort of suggestions that if for what we could think about in the breaks, of course you think about whatever you want to think about, but if we think about this practice of remembrance, I think it's really worth exploring in ourselves what that means for us. What on earth does it mean to have a connection with the One? What could it, and what's the most that it could mean? Because I think it can mean, it's very easy for us to, and anything I'm saying, I'm talking about myself. All these practices we're doing are the practices I need to do, so I don't want to give a sort of remote feeling of knowing the answers. But it's so easy to just say, I'm doing some Zikr, and to just do some Zikr. The connection with the One is just this vast life challenge for us, life journey for ourselves, which is so, well, really, you know, what else is more worthy of engaging with? In the dances we do, actually there's a nice little roomy thing here. When a person's I is negated, I as in the letter I, is negated and eliminated from existence, then what remains? I think that's a pretty good thing to think about. Central to Zikr is Fana, and Fana is often translated as effacement, which is a nice word, but it's more often translated as annihilation of the ego. Certainly something I know from my own practice is that the ego, above all else, is the thing that gets in the way of my experience. You know, I'm thinking about I'm trying to get into this connection with the One in the dance, and I'm thinking about something else, or I'm thinking, is this too fast, or is this in the right key, or is it too something or other, or I don't like the way so-and-so is doing something. Well, I really don't like this dance, or I don't like English language dances, or how do I pronounce that? There's just so many, or whatever else I have to do that day. It's infinite. So we'll do a bit of work with the ego in the next day and a half. In the dances, I use silence quite a lot in my dances, and I use it all the time. So the on the breath phases, just to state the obvious, are an opportunity to intensify our connection with the practice and with the words. I mean, again, it's just easy. We stop singing, relax a bit. It is a form of relaxation, but it's connecting more deeply with the words that we're saying. You've already done a really good job actually of being on time. Being on time, we've got quite a lot to do. So try and be here in advance of every single thing we do. Otherwise we're going to end up with truncated lunch breaks and stuff. And the last thing to say is that what we're trying to do is connect with the One. That's the goal. There's all sorts of, and how do we do it? I think we do it with a spacious heart, opening to the divine presence, through quietening our being and refining our being. And then we have practices, which is we're doing practices, but the practices aren't the goal. The goal is the connection with the One. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm going to do, because I'm doing some teaching today, there's going to be more emphasis on practices than usual. And I'm aware that that's in contradiction with the goal to a degree. It's in the immediate term, in the present, it's in contradiction because we spend more time thinking about how we're doing things. But what we're trying to do is connect with the One. So I thought the first dance we'd try and see about just going straight for the connection in the One. So that's what we're going to do right now. I do a lot of these dances with hands not held. When we do it with hands not held, the idea is that we're holding hands with others in the circle. The circle's bigger than it is. It gives space. It feels a bit unfamiliar if you haven't done it a lot, but give it a go. And just so, for example, if we're not holding hands, really have this feeling that we are still connected with each other, and we're connected with more. So the first dance has a sort of morning air energy about it, and just really have a feeling of your connection with your feet and how your feet are touching the ground, and being light on our feet, and the connection in every one of the dances, the connection through the crown chakra with spirit coming down and everything meeting in the heart.